and today we're going to talk about terrariums. Terrariums were very popular back in the 70s and before that, and then they pretty much disappeared. You may see one here or there, but they were difficult to get. People did not even think about them up until a couple of years ago. They came back with a vengeance, and now they're very, very popular, very trendy. Everyone is coming in looking to purchase the plants in the terrariums. They're a fun way of gardening indoors. The greatest thing about terrariums are they're pretty much self-maintaining once you get them established. There's all different varieties. Some of them have open terrariums, which typically are not true terrariums, but you do have to water and monitor their care a little bit more. But some of the other terrariums that have tops on them, they pretty much self-maintain. They take care of themselves. During the day or when you have them closed, they will build up a condensation on the sides and the walls of the terrarium. Then, once a day, I always recommend to customers to take the top off, especially in warm weather, and the condensation that builds around will drain back into the terrarium and water it on its own. So very rarely do you need to apply any water to a terrarium. The way people kill them most frequently is by overwatering. So just give them a little dribble of water, maybe even not much more than a quarter to a half a cup for an average sized terrarium, about every couple of months, and that's it. As long as you're diligent about taking your top off and putting it back on, you should be fine. Now, building a terrarium is a lot of fun. Up until recently, you had to purchase all the materials, the stones, the bark, the charcoal, but fortunately we were able to find these kits here, which includes everything, so you don't have to spend a fortune buying bags and bags of the material that you need. Typically in a terrarium you have a layer of stones, then you have a layer of moss, then you have some charcoal. Charcoal is very important for a terrarium because it'll break down the sour smell of the moist soil. So it kind of aerates or filters your terrarium. And then you put your potting mix and your plants. We have a variety of different plants that are specifically geared for terrariums. They're miniature varieties. We have lots of ferns. Usually in a terrarium you're going to use lower to medium light plants. You don't use plants that like a lot of sun because you want them to grow very slowly. You want them to maintain their size. Now eventually some of these varieties will grow, but there's a lot of pruning involved. With terrariums you want to get yourself a nice pair of scissors so that you can cut any large pieces of, let's say, a fern that stick to the side. That can be an issue in a terrarium when you have moist plants on the sides of the terrarium. It can actually break down and leave a green mossy substance, which you don't want. It looks very nasty. So pruning is very important. There's a lot of ground covers that supply tons of oxygen, and baby tears is one of the big ones that really does a lot for the terrarium. It creates that oxygen carbon dioxide exchange, which gives you that condensation you need. So sometimes it's not even as much water you use as what type of plant you use. Ferns also will do the same thing. They're very cyclic, and they'll work and they'll create their own moisture. And there's a variety. Now, another fun thing that's part of terrariums is fairy gardening. Fairy gardening is something that's new and up and coming. There are fairy gardens for outdoors that you can create with perennials and succulents. But indoors, they're using a lot of this fairy gardening in nursing homes and hospitals with children who have been critically ill for a certain period of time, convalescent homes. A lot of different places are creating these fairy gardens so people can get an idea of what it would be like to have this little environment. Now there's a lot of fun little accessories for your garden. There's little chairs and tables. We have wheelbarrows and birds. So all of this type of thing can be incorporated with little doorways. You know, you can place them in your terrarium or in your fairy garden. Now, a fairy garden is going to be very similar to a terrarium, except for it's open. So the planting will be a little bit different. But there's also like little gazing globes that you can put in. So it's not just about plants. It's also about all the little accessories that can go into your terrarium. There's also hanging terrariums, which are a little bit different. Now, hanging terrariums have an open hole, so there's always going to be an issue with watering. You have to water them periodically. A lot of people will use air plants and place them in there, and then just place a tiny bit of misted every once in a while. You can also use ferns. You can use a variety, almost anything in here. If you wanted to do succulents and put it in a sunny window, you could have a dry terrarium. That's what you call a terrarium that requires a lot of sunlight and not much moisture. So there's all different shapes and sizes. Some of these terrariums are very, very exclusive and very ornate. This one has a key that opens. You can either, you could plant directly in there, or you could create, put a dish in there with different variety of plants. Orchids do nicely in those. Some of them have tops that you have to remove the whole top, like a bell jar, and then you place it back in. And this one's terracotta, so it's going to breathe a lot easier. And then for some people, it's just having some pretty little container like this and put a very small plant in it, and you treat it the same way. You take the top off, you put the top on. If you didn't even want to purchase plants, you could take something like this. If you have gardens in your yard, you could actually just use the moss that grows outside and place it in the terrarium with some stones underneath, and it'll grow and be quite happy inside the terrarium. And like this terrarium here, the condensation is building, so it's going to have the top removed, and within an hour it'll be crystal clear all over again. And as you see, we've got some little ditties. We've got a little wheelbarrow in there with some stones in it, so you can really create a fun environment.